All right, Minding Your Business community. We are episode 178 of the Minding Your Business podcast. I'm your host once again, Champ Ron. Entrepreneurship, real estate, trending news. There's no business like minding your own. We're recording this on what looks to be a pretty good Friday. Weather-wise, I'm here in Memphis, Tennessee. We've had a rainy week thus far, but looks to be sunshine and that sort of thing. Don't know what holds for the rest of the day, but right now it is looking pretty good. Hope things are going well wherever you are. Subscribe to the podcast, 5-star on Apple or wherever you get your podcast content. And you can also find us at themybpodcast.com. Listen, I'm excited for today's guest. He is Mr. Don W. Long. He is the best-selling author, speaker, and peak performance consultant. And he's got a really nice niche of professionals that he works with and has worked with throughout his career. And we're excited to hear from him today here on episode number 178. So, Don, my man, thank you so much for joining here on the Minding Your Business podcast.
Yeah, thanks, Ron, for having me on. Really, I'm glad to be here with you and your guest.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm glad, we were talking a little bit offline about using a Mac and that sort of thing. So I'm glad working through some of the technical issues that we all run into at different times, right?
Yeah, sure.
We're able to get, definitely situated. So, so Don, let's hop right in. Tell us about who you are and kind of how you got to, what you're doing today.
Well, probably the short version is I've basically been in the business community since I was in my early 20s. Actually, started my first business when I was probably 20 years old, actually. And
Wow.
I was hanging around some guys who were soccer players at UNC Chapel Hill in North Carolina, and they were really sharp, good-looking guys. They knew how to sell, and so it started my journey. We were friends, and I had met them through a couple friends, and then became friends with them, and it kind of started my journey in sales. That's kind of how I began my first business. Was selling basically donuts to businesses in several states, several
Donuts.
Yeah, with Krispy Kreme donuts within,
Oh, really? Oh, yeah.
Reidsville, Greensboro, Eden, places that were around where the Krispy Kreme outlet was in Greensboro, North Carolina at the time.
Gotcha. Okay.
There, and
there
we
you
would
go.
we would sell donuts in the morning, and then we would do network marketing at night. So I got tried by fire when it came to sales with these guys.
You definitely
really
sell
good at what they did, and so. Part of my journey after that is I started a couple multi-million-dollar businesses, and that were the last one I sold was in the top 1,000 companies in the United States that did what we did in that particular industry. And so, that's kind of the end of the point of when I started doing what I'm doing now. It's there's a lot of moving pieces between the two. I guess
Sure.
the beginning of life, I really just was trying to figure out a way to pay my bills and support myself and my wife so we wouldn't be poor.
Right. No doubt about it, man. No doubt.
As life has grown, I try to live more in an inspirational state than a desperational state.
Right.
Desperation seems to get your attention a whole lot quicker than inspiration.
No, it definitely does. No doubt. So Don, you get started and you're selling donuts. Okay.
Yep.
And you're selling them to business owners. One, I guess I got to ask, because we got Krispy Kreme here, and when the light comes on and they're hot and ready, man, it's something else. It's a whole nother situation. So are you delivering them hot and ready, or you're not getting the cold ones out?
We get them fresh. We would get them fresh in the morning. So they were definitely just out of the oven in the morning.
Yeah.
And then we would load them up, and we didn't really have head vehicles back then. You're talking
course,
early 80s. So
yeah, right.
And we would go to businesses because at that time, a lot of, I guess, churches still do it, and different fundraisers still do it to this day. But that's how, people were familiar with the name. So they didn't know if we were selling for us or someone else. So I was selling so I wouldn't have to eat donuts, because if we didn't sell enough donuts, I had to eat donuts for supper at night.
Right.
You don't want to do that all the time. But it really,
right.
It wasn't so much the product. It was more of the process in the beginning of just learning how to communicate with people. And being able to build business finding some mentors that were better in life. When I was 20, everybody was better than life than me,
Right.
so it's easier to find mentors. The bigger you get in life, it gets harder to get, to bigger people, so to speak.
Sure.
That was my journey. And then from there, we sold vacuum cleaner services where we would get vacuum cleaner, clean carpet in people's homes. We sold vacuum cleaners. I sold online, online at the time, a tractor trailer school course that taught people how to drive a tractor trailer.
Wow.
So pretty much anything you could think about, if it was legal, we tried to sell it. And I think we were the two guys that really helped me learn how to sell in the early days. And so from 1982 to 86, I tell people I got a master's degree in sales because these guys knew how to do it. All I did was just try to follow them. That's basically all I did to learn. And then in 86, I started a business with my dad, a family business. And we built that for about 15 years and sold a portion of it in the late 90s. And then spun the portion we sold, we spun off another multi-million-dollar company from it. And so we were really moving, we're really moving into some fairly good success for a country boy from Hopedale, North Carolina, which is just outside, close to Burlington, North Carolina. It's between Durham and Greensboro. So,
gotcha.
From there, I just I had always had this. When I had started having some success, I've always kind of had this thing in me to want to be able to give it to other people if they needed what I had.
Yeah.
So, part of the reason that I'm doing what I'm doing now is authoring the books. And, it's like the old saying on the farm that even a blind hog can find an acorn every now and then. After about 40 years in business, I've learned a few things just accidentally by tripping over them, and
you're right. Exactly.
Being able to take that and really empower champions and entrepreneurs and people who have dreams but haven't been able to figure out how to connect is kind of how I ended up in that path.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And so, Don, and we want to get into your two books, right? So you have two books that are out. One, The Blueprint of God, which is by our guest Don W. Long, and Sell or Don't Eat, which I like that one, Don W. Long as well. Both of those books are Amazon bestsellers. You can find them on Amazon and MYB. Those links will also be in the show notes. So look in the show notes. You'll see that link to be able to go and pick up those books, and they will be good reads for you and for all of us. And so, Don, let's get into some of the books and how your story transitioned into the books. Let's start with The Blueprint of God.
Okay.
What can we expect? I know you were mentioning earlier about kind of finding your identity as a champion and as an ambassador, and how that ties to faith. Can you talk about that some and just kind of your inspiration for the book?
Yeah. So with The Blueprint of God, what ended up happening is the original title was going to be called The Wisdom of the Serpent, Saving the Systems the Father Loves. That was the original title. And I ended up changing it because what I realized is it's the foundational piece that the whole book is founded on. If I give you one reference, would be in Psalms 139. And everybody knows this, whether they've ever read a Bible or not, but it's the verse where it says you are fearfully and wonderfully made, right?
Right.
It talks about how you were created in your mother's womb, so on and so forth. And I had been going through a season in my life. This was about 2016. And I had this kind of a spiritual encounter, I guess you would say. And I felt like I needed to start writing some of the things of the life journey that I'd had and the encounters that I'd had, and then somehow be able to articulate it in a way that could help anybody. It would be explained in a situation where you can find out your gifts and talents. You can find I have a chapter called Seal of Perfection. And then the Seal of Perfection, there's your gift, talents, and abilities. In other words, what you were born to do is already in you before you come out of your mother's womb.
Wow.
And it's like, so I started seeing this, and what I'd realized is in 2016, I started understanding that I had lived a lot of the information that was already in the book. Now, how do I put my experiences and my life into the book so that it can help other people. And that was really and also for me, I have a big why, I guess you would say, reestablishing our nation in America back on its foundations of God, country, and family, and then everything extending from there. You know, and not putting people in certain cubicles of how you have to believe. And it's not a litmus test. It's just it's a moral fabric of our nation and the greatness of who we've become as a nation and people, living in the greatest nation on earth. And so that started burning with my storyline. And that's kind of the reason, that's actually the reason I sold the last company that I had, which was at the end of 18, beginning of 19 is when I sold it, because I wanted to devote time to, you know, running a company with running a multi-million-dollar company that's in the top 1,000 companies in the United States is a lot of work.
Of course, I was going to say, to say the least, right?
It's a lot of moving parts, and
right.
I didn't have the time to write and to explore the other parts of the journey that I felt like that the spiritual path was going to be taking me down. And so the blueprint of God is kind of wrapped around 3 or 4 different thoughts. One's on identity, which I believe is critical to people finding out who they are and why they're here. The second one is built around your gifts, talents, and ability and your desires. I have a chapter called The Blueprint, learning how to connect to your desires. That in Proverbs, it says that desire realized is like the tree of life. And what I realized is that we're pre-programmed before we're born with certain innate desires, innate things that burn inside of us. That's why for you, instance, you have a desire to have 3 or 4 children and live in X place and do this, where I might desire to do that, whatever it is. Those are innate a lot of times in us. If we can just find them, then we can start finding the strengths. There's basically 3 chapters that cover your seal of perfection. The next one is the sum of wisdom. There's actually a wisdom placed in you to work with your street smarts that you were born with.
Yeah.
And we don't even realize that that's there. And then the third one that this last chapter in the book is called beauty. It's finding the things that are beautiful to you. It's finding what turns you on, what lights you up, what burns inside of you. And what I teach people that I mentor is that when you find the things that burn inside of you and that light you up, you're finding the God-given destiny for your life. Now, it doesn't mean that every single one of them might be monetizable. And I teach the difference, because there are certain things that, like, I love to sing, but if you hear me sing, you're not going to buy my music. Trust me on that one. Everyone in my house can sing. I have one daughter's moved out and married now, and then my other one's 21, and then they all can sing, and I can't. Really? I don't even know I don't know how to spell the word.
All your kids can sing.
Yeah, both of my kids can sing, and my wife.
Yeah. Okay.
And I can't. And they were, it's like I get all the looks, when I was growing up, or when they were growing up, I get all the looks when I'd start singing. But I love to sing, but that doesn't mean I can make money doing it.
Gotcha. So it could be a gift. It's just not a monetizable one.
Yeah, and it could be something. I think that God is so big that He gives us things to enjoy, to just purely enjoy them. And it's not about this big cause or this big why. I think all of that's inclusive as well. And so what I started realizing is that when I had lived my life like this and I tell this story in the book, from my early 40s, I had this encounter in 2006, and it kind of reset my life. I have a life before 06 and I have a life after 06, and they're 2 different lives basically. And that reset caused me to look at life completely different. And so therefore and it really dealt with my identity piece, which is, to me, the identity piece is everything. And then from there, that's when my businesses started exploding. I mean, we took one business to the top 5%, and then the same company, by the time I sold it, it actually in 2017, it hit the top 1%, which in our industry is about 100,000 companies in the United States. So it put us in the top 1,000 companies. And I didn't even know any of these numbers. Other people made me aware of. I wasn't trying to succeed. I was trying to become. And I learned that and I've taught my girls this since they were really little, but it's more important to become than it is to gain.
Yes.
because becoming attracts gain.
Yes.
It's like, to whom much is given, much is required. And if you're faithful in little, you will get more, right? Those
Hmm.
two things kind of work hand in glove. And so what I started realizing is, okay, so now I live my life probably since my early 40s, a little bit more relaxed. I'm still a kind of a type A intense person. And, before my early 40s, I was probably over the top intense, and you probably didn't want to be around me, just to
Right.
be
Right.
real honest, So
Right.
then after that, things changed, and I started, and this journey led me on writing the book. So it got to where I live life by what I like to call highlights
Hmm.
and desire. And I don't even attempt to do anything. As a matter of fact, all of my courses were inspired by a thought or an inspiration or in something that impacted me. And then I do the course, and I teach on it. I don't really do it without that, because I
Yeah.
want it to have life on it. I want it to, it's got, if it makes you money, fine. Okay.
Sure.
I love what Tony Robbins says. He said, when he asked people what they want, he said, well, I want more money. He said, fine, here's $1. There's more money. Now get out of here.
Right.
You don't want more money. What you want is a life that you love.
Yes.
You
Yeah.
don't
You want to.
want the $100,000 car or the $1 million home or whatever that might be. You want the way it makes you feel when you have it.
Yes.
And
Yep.
so what I
Exactly.
realized is, instead of going after, and I've had the material success, but instead
Sure.
of going after those things, start going after what you love, what burns inside of you. And you will find that not only will you get some of the thing goals, but you'll
Hmm.
actually start living a life that you're fully alive in.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's
And
like, look, if you get fully aliveness and you're living free,
mhm.
it's not much better than that.
Right, exactly. And that reminds me, Don, of if times when, I've had years, and I'm not quite 40 yet. I'll be 40, come January. Um, I've had years, my wife and I, well, we've done very well, financially,
Mhm.
very well. Um, but they weren't always as fulfilling. I found myself oftentimes, always trying to get the next thing, always trying to, avoid this and avoid that. And, always kind of looking over my shoulder with things, even though we were doing very well, I didn't always enjoy it. And I've had other times where maybe we didn't do quite as well numerically. Right. But we did well enough, but we were able to, do the things that we wanted to do. We did
Mhm.
the things that we enjoyed, spending time with our daughters, be able to invest in things that gave us back our time, right? Whereas before, you did a lot. I did a lot of trading time for money,
Mhm.
right? And we got to a point where we started doing the reverse, where we started trading money for time. And that time, like you say, that's part of developing the identity. And it's the same type of inspiration that inspired me for a book that I wrote a few years ago. And so I relate with you, very strong with that, and that sense of identity. And MYB community, I hope that you're taking heed to that you've got to invest in the experiences and create your identity, as opposed to just being, so caught up in, I got to be successful and where do I stack rank against other people and other, all this type of stuff. And then the pursuit of things, right, that, diminish over time. I mean, it goes back to like when you're a kid, right? I remember, you and I still remember, when kids played with action figures and,
That's right.
all that type of stuff, and went to the park and did all those type of, innovative things.
I remember when
um,
there were cell phones. So I mean that day.
Right. Yeah. I see. Me too. And so, Donnie, if you think about that, we would get toys. I remember wanting a toy so bad, and I could name a whole bunch of them. I remember when I was really young, I wanted Super Gonzo.
Come on.
I wanted, so like, there were only a few of them around, right? I mean, this was probably going like kindergarten. I wanted a Super Gonzo so bad. I thought maybe I saw someone on TV or I saw it in the, JC Penney's magazine or something like that. Don, I wanted a Super Gonzo so bad. I worried the ever loving whatever out of my mom and dad about getting a Super Gonzo. I got one. It probably wasn't 6 weeks before Super Gonzo was laying with the rest of the toys and I want something else, right? It's like Super Gonzo. Who wants that? That was yesterday.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So like you go on and now you want other things. And like you say, it was just about how Super Gonzo made me feel at the time wanting one. But once I got that feeling, I need to get a new feeling, right? That Super Gonzo wasn't giving me anymore.
That's right. That's exactly.
And so I equate that to the parallels of what you were describing, there with the book. So I appreciate you doing that, because that's a good reminder and lesson for us all, um, to be champions of our identity.
Yeah.
Um,
One piece I would add to your story of the toys, because I was the same way. Mine was
yeah,
GI Joe with a kung fu grip. I had to have one of those. And so it's like, but
right,
the thing about it is that when as I started, I wasn't really looking to start a new journey when I had the '06 encounter. It just
okay,
it kind of happened, right? It just kind of starts unfolding, made you
right,
see the world differently. But one of the things that I realize is that what we're looking for is exactly what you're saying. So, you got the toy, but then you needed something else to give you the feeling. That was what you used. That was your term, right? So
right,
what we're really looking for is the feeling.
right.
We don't.
Hmm.
We're not. See, we're still not looking for the home or the car or the good-looking mate or the great children or relationships with our friends. That's really not what we're looking for. We're looking for the way it makes us feel when we have those.
Right.
And it's like you can produce the feeling without having the thing.
Yes.
And that's what's exciting. So for me, what I started doing, and I had always accidentally done this. See, I believe that success leaves clues, right? And so I
Hmm.
had accidentally done a lot of things that were good that I had no idea were good
Right.
in
Yeah.
business, right? And so
Exactly.
then one day I started realizing some of these things, and I'm like, okay, if I know that works, now if I want to make it work better, push the gas,
Yeah.
make it go faster, right? And so then I started to realize I've done this my whole life as far as like the coaching, mentoring, giving stuff away. I just have always been that's part of my DNA. And I realized, okay, so if I grow, and I'm a self uh, help junkie, I guess you could say. I've thrown more books away than most people will ever read. So I have
Yeah.
closets full of books that I read to try to become, And so,
Right.
anyways, I love doing that. And the reason I love it is that when I grow, then I can contribute.
Hmm.
So two of my highest needs and desires, they're both the same. It's
Yeah.
growth and contribution. So
Yeah.
then when I grow, like if I read, I can tell you, I just got through reading a great book. I'll give you and the people that are listening. It's called, I don't remember the guy's last name. His first name is Ryan, but the book is called The Obstacle is the Way.
Mm.
And it is a great book. It's a book about the Stoics, a study of the Stoics and Marcus Aurelius, and how and he ties it to nowadays, success and how to walk your life out and everything. And it was a
Yeah.
great book. And it's like, so for me, when I read that, then I have something new to give when I get with my friends now and we have a meal together. With COVID, it's a little different, but I mean, we're starting back
Right.
on the track now. When we get together, then I have something new to talk about. Hey, did you read this? Can we study, can we talk about this? And so it makes life more exciting. And as you do that, look, this is not rocket science.
Right.
When you're fully alive, this is not a trick question. Do you want to be around alive people or dead people? Which one?
Yeah. Always live people.
Right? So when you're fully alive, you're
Yeah.
already attracting all the life in the universe coming to you right away, because
Right.
everybody wants to be with alive people.
Of
And it's
course.
with the
Of
people that I
course.
coach, I'm like, hey, you need to get a little more happier. The last company we're in, and I'm not a jokester, I'm a pretty serious person actually, but the
Yeah.
last company that I ran, our top core value that we tried to infuse in our culture was the
Hmm.
pursuit of happiness.
Okay.
So we did that as a culture team. So my
Sure.
inner circle and all my top leaders, we always talked about how can we make this company a fulfilling and happy place that when people come to work in the morning, they might have all kinds of problems at home.
Right.
But they come to work in the morning, there's an environment that they're looking forward to coming. How do we do that? And we
Yeah.
were obsessed with that cultural thought that we tried to up the game all the time. And, so it was like when you live like that and you start doing that, then it actually invites other people that are like that into your life. And also you have more to give to people who need that journey from you. So
Yeah, no doubt about it. You know, Don, and let's continue on that same type of theme on your other book, which is Sell or Don't Eat. You know, it talks about how selling from the soul will keep food on your table.
I love it. You know,
Yeah. So
this
let's transition there and see the, you know, how that parallels.
is
And you talked
perfect.
about your sales background, right? So, you know, help us unpack the book, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on selling in today's environment and how it may compare and contrast given the current pandemic. You know, how to sell and compare and contrast between pre-pandemic to currently now, but unpack the book for us some.
Okay. So it's interesting because it really ties into our last thought we just covered about growing and contributing. So
Yeah.
this book came out of a conversation with a close friend of mine.
Okay.
This guy is a musician, and he's a left brain type, very creative guy. And we were, I don't know, we've been friends for probably 8 or 10 years, probably 10 now. And this is probably back in 2017 sometime. So
Okay.
he called me and said, "Hey, can we get together and have coffee?" I said, "Sure. When let's get together." And I mean, we were friends, so I'm just thinking we're getting together for coffee. And he said, "I'm starting a business," and he looked a little bit nervous, and cause we're friends, and I'm wondering why he's nervous, because I'm thinking, oh, he's going to ask me for money now, I guess. I don't know what it is. So he said,
Right.
I don't know how to sell, and I don't think I can sell. And so
Okay.
I said, well, I'll tell you what. Let's set a time once a week, and we'll get together and we'll physically grab coffee, and you ask me questions, and I'll give you the kind of the best practices type things that to answer your questions. I won't assume that I know what to tell you. I'll wait for you to question me so I can give you the answers you need instead of the things I think you need. And
Right.
so we started that process. Well, when he started his business, he had 0 clients. Okay.
Okay.
And in 6 weeks of us having an hour and a half coffee every week. In 6 weeks, he came in and he looked white as a sheet. Okay, now he's a white guy, so
Right.
he was really white. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Right.
And I'm like, man, what is wrong with you? And he said, his first question was, have you ever got too much business? And I said, excellent, we
Yeah.
there. So in 6 weeks, he's overbooked.
So what type of business was he in?
He was
What industry?
he recorded recording video and audio. He's an expert at that. He can do stage stuff, lighting and stuff like that. He's like world
Yeah.
class stage person. And so he was recording stuff for people to market, and he was doing the
Mm.
audio editing, and then doing any of the video editing and making it. He's got all these machines in his house where he can run them through and make everything. So he can even make me sound good. So it's really
Yeah.
all of my courses. He does all the stuff to him there. So
And when was this? When you guys were having this conversation? What kind of time frame are we talking here? Is this more recent or?
17.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So he was able, we didn't have the COVID going on, so
Right.
it wasn't quite, but it's interesting because most of his sales were through the computer to people he might have known in other states. So really very little of the business was here in the Raleigh-Durham area.
Right.
So what got me excited. So when he came in that day, he said, we're going to, you need to have a podcast or something, is what he said. And he said, I'm going to build you a website. And I'm like, I'm running a company. I'm not thinking about anything other than helping my friend learn how to sell. That's it.
Right.
I'm not thinking about writing a book for sure. And
Yeah.
so anyways, I said, well, I'll tell you what, let me do this. So I started taking my iPhone, and it's got an app on there that you can record on.
Right.
He wanted me to have a nicer thing, and it's called Assure. It's a Shure app. It's a Shure mic.
Yeah.
They are.
Mm-hmm.
And so I got me a Shure mic. Looks like this one that the jazz singers used to sing, and it's big. You could hurt somebody with it if you hit it with
Right.
it. And so you connect it to the bottom of the iPhone, and I started teaching these voice memos to him. Like I took 20-minute segments talking about the best things that I had developed in sales over 35 years.
Yeah.
And it ended up being about 17 audios. And I condensed it down into a workbook form that became a course. I have a course it's called Selling from the Soul. That was the original title of the book, and that's the course name on my site. And then the book, we ended up writing it, and I had a lady help me publish it, Michelle Culp, who's, if you want a good book published, she's the best. I had her help me with it, and it hit number one, and I was selling copies in Italy and France and places of people I didn't even know within the first 5 days of the book being out. And it was like, I hadn't planned on any of that. So
Yeah.
what I talk about in the book, to give you a little bit of backdrop, is I talk about how to build relationships with people, because what I learned over life's time is that sales is not sales.
Mm-hmm.
It's really
Right.
influence, and it's creating win-win for your clients and actually caring for them. The word client, and this is the way I taught the team that sold at the last company I ran, and I teach all the people that I mentor, never call them a customer again. That's a cuss word in my book. You
Mm-hmm.
call them clients. Why? The word client defined means under your care. So
Mm-hmm.
every time you call them a client, and I tell them that, and I told my teams that, because when you say client, you have this mental image, they're under my care. So if
Right.
people are under your care, are you going to take care of them? Or are you going to use them?
Mm-hmm.
See, it sets up a
Yeah.
mental philosophy inside of you, a mindset that these people are trusting me.
Right.
I need to do what's right, even if it's not as right for me sometimes, right?
Right.
So I teach that in the book. The first couple chapters, just to give you, the first one I think's on the real you, and then the second one is called authenticity. And I teach a lot
Mm.
about, I teach some of the principles of the hand-to-hand combat stuff that you have to do, but I teach more about mindset and about development of you and finding out how you sell. You have a way you sell. I actually have a little audio, about 8 audio series that I haven't put up for sale. I have it created, and it's your sales blueprint. Each person has a blueprint of how they sell.
Yeah.
And it's based on your DISC model. You're familiar with the DISC behavioral
Yes.
profile, right? So I
Mm-hmm.
break it down because I have a mentor who taught me that model for years. And I take that and I break it down into whether you're a DICS and how you would sell if you're a mixture of those 4 into something else, what that looks like, how to learn how to match and mirror, how to read people. Because if you go in the room, if I come in the room to talk to you and I immediately know you're a C,
Mm-hmm.
because I've studied, I've learned, I'm listening, I'm watching, then I
Right.
know I have to adapt if I'm an I.
Yes.
The I's are all over the place typically, and the C's are the more methodical engineer types, right?
Yeah.
And so if you can make that adjustment in the first 60 seconds of meeting a new client, and
Mm-hmm.
look at it this way, the other piece of it, which is cool, is that you want your clients to keep doing business with you forever, right? That's the goal.
Right. Of
Lifetime
course.
clients that nobody can steal, right? That's what you want.
Right.
And what happens is the better you know your clients over time, then you know what to say to them. Because here's one of the greatest lessons that your audience can get out of sales. This is
Yeah.
the greatest lesson right here. I'm getting ready to give it to you for free right here.
Okay.
Your clients do not care how you communicate. They want to be communicated to the way they want to receive communication, not the way you give it.
Mm. Yeah.
And the sooner
Very true. Very true.
you can learn that, then the DISC is easy to take. Most people have taken a profile test of some type. The DISC is
Sure.
the more simple one. But the reality of it is knowing you, the real you, it's the first chapter in the book, knowing you, and
Mm-hmm.
then knowing others is the big silver bullet to success in sales.
Yeah.
Because when I go in, it's not about manipulation. It's about knowing how people would like to be communicated to. And if
Right.
I come in there and you're an S is my wife, and she's very low key. I come in there and I'm loud and abrasive and whatever. I lost her in the first 60 seconds. We're done.
Right.
But
Yeah.
if I know that going in, and then I talk about there's a disposition in the DISC that if you don't know what your client is and you really don't know if you're able to figure it out, there is a disposition to take on in your attitude when you go to see them.
Yeah.
And it's like, and it's applicable. It's amiable with all the other dispositions. That's part of the thing. But anyways, I could go on and on
Yeah.
about sales because that's kind of where I started from. I
Yeah.
wrote the sales book almost by accident, you could say. I mean, that's kind of how it came out. But
Right.
if a lot of people that I don't know, I think sales, over the years, sales gets bad name.
Well, of course. Yeah.
Car salesman or whatever, and it's like, but by and large, the way I teach people how to sell, you have to find your clients and serve them well, and
Mhm.
set up win-win situations and those type things. And so much of that has to do with not them. It has to do with you and how you
Right.
go about things and find out who you are, and then be able to deliver your service or product or result.
Yeah.
Client.
Yep, no doubt about it, Don. And really what happens is sales gets a bad rap, in my opinion, because one, people don't do it right. They go about it like you said. They have this, kind of customer focus. Everything is about, my goal, right? So if and I saw this in banking, you assign a goal, hey, you need to open 5 of these, or you need to pick up 5 of these. And so that's what, people are fearful of it internally, right? Salespeople don't like sales. So then that energy, like you mentioned, gets transferred to other people, because they come in, like you say, that's the disposition they have, right? Salespeople have, or you get people that it's just about hitting a number, like you say, where used car sales gets that bad rap because it's, I'll sell as long as I get the sale. My approach to it, or what I'm actually selling you, the quality of it is irrelevant to me just getting, the sale done. And so, like you say, it's about an understanding of people, and we do it across everything we do. I mean, you and I are both married, right? You didn't just walk up to your wife, first time you met her and just married, asked her for her hand in marriage, right?
That's right.
I don't think you did that, Don, right?
No, I didn't.
I had to make sure. No, because I know I certainly did that, right? It was a sales of, you had to get to know her, she had to get to know you, and then you find out what that compatibility piece is, and you develop a friendship, and you develop a respect that then becomes the foundation of what you build the rest of the relationship off of. It's that friendship and that respect that then generates the love and everything else that builds. It's like building a house. Whatever you're only as good as your foundation.
That's right.
Right. And so the same thing, like you described in sales, it's all the same thing. So when I hear people say they don't like the sale, I'm wondering, well, what are you doing out here? Because if you're going for a job interview, right, you're selling yourself to the organization. Why me and not the other, 1,000 people, men and women that are all also qualified for this job? If you're going in for a proposal to the city, you want to work with your city, you've started a business, you're going for a government contract, you're selling yourself in the business, right? If you're going to purchase something out of a store, you're negotiating for it, you're selling your reason why. So everything is sales, right? Like someone here on Facebook mentioned, everything is sales, right? Everything you're selling. So it's doing it the right way. And like you said, Don, understanding what makes people tick. And that only comes from conversation, right? Like we're making the analogy with a spouse. You only get to know your wife, or ladies, you only get to know your husband, right, by having a conversation with him or her. Right. You have, and getting to know, you ask the right questions, and then you're listening actively. Right. And then you're presenting, where you have value and where values align. Right. Absolutely. And when that happens, like you said, then it's not necessarily, like you say, what we were thinking about is people selling per se, Don. Now it's a relationship. Right. And, there's, you become a trusted individual within their circle.
Yes.
And that's what I've always, like for me in banking, to compare with what you were saying earlier, banking is very homogenous, right? I mean, every bank has a checking account, everyone has a savings account, right? The checking account at one bank is no different than at another, right? They all give you checks, they give you a debit card. They, if you pull up their online banking, whatever your balance is what it is, right, Don? At the end of the day, what's the difference between the bank over here and the bank over there, right? It's the relationship.
That's right.
Right. So when when the bank calls you, do you take that phone call? Well, that's based on your relationship.
That's exactly.
You know what I mean? And so whether it's for your business or personal, right? It's, if they don't have a relationship with you, and you've had and sold businesses, Don, if your banker, you only hear from them when it's time for them to, try to get you to buy something. Hey, Don, it's Ron over at whatever bank and trust. Hey, did you know we got this new shiny, checking account, or new shiny savings account? And that's the only time you ever heard from me. Yeah. We don't have the relationship, right? versus in conversation. If we're having a conversation and you share with me, hey, listen, we really need to set up something else, or I'm having issues trying to keep track with this here and that there, then that's, I can share what we do and what solves that pain point.
That's exactly.
And so, yeah, I'm following with you there exactly, because that's how I try to train people. And even today with going into banks, you try to train people on and build that relationship with them such that your voice is trusted.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so then you're just solving pain points as they come up or as you anticipate them based on what their endeavors are.
Yeah, absolutely. If you can, one of the things that I've attempted to do later in my sales career that I wished I had done early was attempt to be the go-to person for your client, no matter what they need. I have a guy, my financial guy. I'll give you an example of that. I have a financial guy here in the Raleigh-Durham area who manages the monies that I invest in the market, different things, and I go play golf with him about once every week or two, and he stays in contact with me. And he's really good at what he does. But the thing that's really cool about it is, like, if I need something done, like if I'm thinking, man, I need that piece of siding fixed on my house, or I need a paint,
right,
or I need, he knows everybody. So I call him first.
Of course.
Like, I'm his client, but when I need something something done in my life, whatever it might be, that I don't know someone, he's the first person on my list to call. And so I teach people this in the sales process is when you start building deeper relationships with your clients, then you should actually know their life a little bit. I used to teach, hey, build spreadsheets where you'd know their birthday. You'd know if this is an ongoing client, you know their children's name. You know if they place for you, as much of that information as you could document. So when you were to reach out to them for whatever the next job or the next thing or just a contact, you would actually have that in front of you. So you wouldn't have to be stumbling around trying to remember their kids' names or whatever. And, some of that is just, it depends on the other party. If they're not as relational, then you probably won't get it. You'll have to fill that out as you go. But what I realized is the more I could help my clients solve their problems.
Yes.
Even if I wasn't the one solving it, if they brought up something in the conversation, saying, I really need a plumber. And I got a great plumber. I say, well, you just call this guy. He can take care of it. Trust me on this. And so it's then you become a trusted inner circle advocate more than just a business person. And so it causes a synergy to where if people in our particular business, we had 400. I teach this thing called the Dream 100. Everybody has their dream clients. And it's called Dream 100. It could be Dream 10,000, 1,000, Dream 50. And it just depends on your type client. But the Dream 100 is just a metaphor for the best clients in your market, in your best buyers. That's what it's for. And so in our market, in the Raleigh-Durham market, and the Greensboro, Winston-Salem, High Point market, those two markets in North Carolina had about 400 different management companies that we figured these are our best buyers. And so we did trade shows and different things like that. We always tried to stay in contact with all these people different ways and tried to keep as much information up on them. And when you do that, what ends up happening is you become like a confidant with these people, and you have to train this. If you have multiple sales organizations that you have in a company, obviously it gets more complicated. But if you're an individual entrepreneur, the best way to do it, find out the top 100 companies you want to do business with are people, and go after them until you get them. That's how I built my first business. And it's like, and then once you get them, try to attempt to keep that client for life.
Yeah, no doubt about it.
The way you keep it for life is by becoming that inner circle advocate who knows things that can help them with other things.
Yep, exactly. And that's the same way I built, my banking practice. So coming out of my banking career, what was interesting was when I had the title, right? When I'm at a bank and I've got the title, right? I'm vice president of this and, executive VP, that sort of thing, Don. Everybody answers my phone call, right? when I'm not there, right? Very few are answering my phone call, right? Because, I don't have the title and everything, because that's what the value was to certain people.
That's
So
right.
in building the practice is exactly what you said. What's your strategy, right? What are you going to do? What are you going to execute on?
Yeah.
Well, I was intelligent enough to keep list of obviously the relationships that I had and phone numbers. I had my directory, right? So I went through, I sized that up just like you said, and I said, what's the DNA of the type of people I want to do business with,
Yeah.
right? Like you mentioned earlier in the podcast about survival, I was in a survival mode.
Mhm.
My income's been shut off, right? That nice salary and benefits and all that's gone.
Yeah.
All right. So now what do I do? Okay. So now, yes, you got to put food on the table. You got to keep things going, but you still have to have a executable strategy. And
Absolutely.
so, exactly like you said, I took the top banks of who do I want to reach out to, and I just reached out to them, just tough.
Yeah.
Leaving messages, I'm shooting emails, I'm mailing out things, I'm doing everything that I can, right? And I've got them. I'm using tools, right, to keep track with who should I be reaching out to, and it took a little bit of time.
Right.
And but like you said earlier, it's kind of been the story for me too. I've had success in things, Don. One, by building relationships, and just I'm there often when nobody else is there,
Mm.
right? Sometimes I just outlast people because
Yeah.
when other people give up or they don't get the result, I'm that guy that's there,
That's right.
right? And so yeah, in a lot of those cases, by my diligence, right, and putting things out there strategically and with the focus of building relationships,
Yeah.
right, my focus was to get a meeting, right? That's it. I keep a very simplistic, and my only thing is I just want to get FaceTime,
Hmm.
however I can do that.
Yeah.
And then from there is, I want to hear from you. A lot of these bankers, they didn't have anybody to really just talk to that
Yeah.
they respected who had been in the industry.
Yep.
Right. So once I share and, my background, and, that sort of thing, then questions started. Well, hey,
Yeah.
what do you think about this? What do you think about that? And then I'm just sharing. It,
That's
it
right.
has nothing to do with the price of a product or the price of a course. It had nothing to do with any of that.
Yep.
It was only about the conversation and let me learn about you. And then, what the things that started happening, you wouldn't believe it, Don. They express pain points.
Yeah.
And so then I'm able to then share, but here's a way I can help you with that. And here's how it ties to a revenue stream.
Mm.
Right. And so then when COVID hits, and I want to get your thoughts here, is when COVID hits, then Don, and the banks have to shut down their lobby, they've been watching this podcast. Some of them were getting to know me from this more so than my banking career, which
Wow.
was crazy. But so I got calls from two banks in Michigan who listened to this podcast and that sort of thing, shared it around, and they were interested in the podcast because they want to be able to connect with their customer, what they're referring to as their customers and clients or their members, if they're in the credit union space. They were wanting to um, connect with them because they're not able to send messaging out when they're not coming into branches,
Mm.
right? How do we connect? There's only so many emails we can send, Ron. There's only so much of this, right, Don? And so, really what ended up happening is I ended up creating a lane for me during this pandemic in
Mm.
helping banks specifically set up their own podcast platform.
Wow.
Right. And so, and I didn't have a platform set up for this.
Right.
This came from the relationship. Ron, we see you do the podcast. We like to be able to do that, but we don't know what we're doing.
Right.
Can you help us with that?
Yeah.
And I mean, I could direct them to different areas, but I didn't personally have a platform for that. And they
Right.
said, well, if you put something together, get it over to our accounts payable, let us know what it's going to cost, get us a proposal. So I spend a week, right, building a whole brand,
Yeah.
which I call Brand Pod.
Yeah.
And I've been able to do now a handful of banks podcasts. We launched one last week.
That's
Just a
cool.
30-minute podcast that now is, and it's been downloaded, I want to say, I guess, 220 something times or something
Right.
last time I looked at it. And that's just in a week, which is tremendous. But it's a way for them to tell their story during this pandemic. And
Yeah.
what they're sharing with their clients is, what have we been doing behind the scenes?
Mm-hmm.
We know the struggles you've had. Let me share with you what your bank has been doing,
Mm.
and how we've been taking care of our employees and how we've been doing this, how we've been advocating for you, in an authentic way. And so it goes to what you're saying. It's tremendous thought just to understand how to, build relationships and to be within that circle of trust.
Absolutely. I mean, you hit it right on the head. That's it. The thing I would encourage people listening who's have, major issues with the COVID and their finances and stuff like that is, look, the greatest breakthroughs in life come from the greatest tragedies and contradictions. And it's interesting. You just told the story. I don't have to reiterate it. You just told the whole story. Here it is. You're like being asked by people to give you something you don't even do, and you step up and figure out how to do it. And suddenly, you've got. Let me tell you something. When you do that for people, those people are going to be clients for life, right there for you if you take
right.
And so it's like, look for the question is I think you were going to ask me about COVID. How do you deal with the ups and downs of everything going on with the pandemic, right?
Right.
You just told the best story of all. Look for the opportunities that are staring you in the face. And if you don't see any, do this. Faith is always active. So what I did in the first few weeks of it is I reassessed my goals. I reassessed my dreams. I re-journaled. I do journals. I'm a big believer in journaling and writing things down. And I looked at who am I right now? What do I want in the future? And why do I want it? I asked those three questions. And then obviously with all the technology that we have today, I mean, most of the coaching, and I have a few clients that I've met one-on-one that live in proximity of the Raleigh-Durham market. But most of the people that I've communicated with and helped them with their businesses during this time has been through Zoom or, some of the other type products out there that you can do right through the computer. But I can still talk to them, see what's going on. There's always a way to connect if you want. And so to me, it's interesting. You were talking about face-to-face time. You were always trying to just get the meeting, right?
Right.
Well, let me tell you something. In 240 years or 2,000 years, you pick a time frame. It doesn't matter. Do you know that TOMA? There's a word used in the sales and marketing industry called TOMA, which means top of mind awareness.
Yeah.
So TOMA. And the top and number one, there's 10 ways to get sales, and I won't go through the whole list, but the number one way to get sales is the same as it was 2,000 years ago. Personal contact.
Yeah.
Number one. When I get FaceTime with you, then I'm not a number anymore. I'm not a name anymore. I'm a human being.
Right.
And then you have to, at that point in time, we have a conversation.
Yeah.
And that is it. So look, I realize that there's limitations in this thing, depending on what state you're in and stuff all over the world and in the United States, especially. But if you got a computer, you can look somebody in the face, because I'm looking at you in the face.
Right. Exactly. We're looking at each other right now.
I'm in FaceTime.
Raleigh and Memphis. Yeah. Exactly. And that's why we live, unlike 2,000 years ago, we live in a great time because we're able to do this. Whereas 2,000 years ago, from Raleigh to Memphis was essentially a world away.
That's exactly.
And for me to send you a message would take, 3 months,
But see, the connection too is a wonderful thing about doing the podcast, which is people listening or just getting to hear, and it's fun. You can hear it, listen to all this stuff, and grow while you're driving. I used to wear tapes out. I don't even know if people that are listening know what a tape is anymore. With a cassette tape, I would wear them out. They'd come unraveled. You'd have to take a pencil and back in. What I'm talking about, right? And
right.
That was I was learning, man. I was driving these cars that I could hardly get them down the road with because they were just wannabe cars, and so, you learn so much in those times. But it's interesting because when we connect like this, we actually feel the emotion, even though it is through a computer. You have some emotional connection when you see somebody's face. And so, hey, everybody's got a laptop nowadays, at least an iPhone or something like that. And you can actually FaceTime and connect with people actually pretty easy,
Yeah. Yep. No doubt about it. And so, thank you for, sharing those things, Don, 'cause I think that helps us all. And, we've been getting some great comments here on Facebook. Camille, Nidra Reddit, who's a real estate professional, runs actually a really good real estate school here in Memphis, Tennessee. And, some great comments that everybody's been sharing. And so definitely appreciate everybody's feedback. And of course, you can email me, Ron at the MYB podcast, for those that if you're not on social media right now and you want to be able to connect or share some comments, you can definitely do so. And then you can connect with Don at www.donwlong.com. Go to donwlong.com to connect with him. A fun question for you, Don. As we've been talking about things and having, obviously novel, true, authentic experiences. If I were to bring you $100 million in cash, so I pull up the Brinks truck to your house, $100 million in cash, no strings attached. Don't have to pay it back. Don't have to do, not going to monitor how you use it. Just here's $100 million in cash. What would you do with it and why?
Well, the why probably would come first in the question. I can do that one easy. I believe that our nation's at a crossroads and we've got to rise up and be better than we are. And I think we have to go back to some of the foundations that are more eternal than temporal that we've lived by probably my whole adult lifetime. And that's kind of why I started the journey with the books and the coaching and all of that. The reason what I would do with the money would be to find people and somehow create a mentoring process across the United States. It could be inner city. It could be in sports. I have a professional athlete who used to play at the highest level in soccer who had coaching clubs, and he mentors young kids. He's he's my student.
Yeah.
And powerful. He's 34 years old. He's a rock star. He's ripped and he's an athlete. But he had and what my job with him is to pour this empowering champion mindset in him of overcoming. And so, we've developed the friendship, but he has this whole program with kids. He's raising kids up with proper, attitudes about sports and stuff. You could do it many different ways, but take the money, find people I could partner with in cities and counties across the United States and figure out how to get that money down to kids in the maybe, I don't know, 8, 5, 6, 7, 8 to 18 to empower them with great, you're familiar with the first T, right? The golf thing.
Right.
Integrity. You've got to count your strokes. Self-responsibility, self-government, and why. Not just telling people, and also having an outlet for them to have activity with it.
Yeah.
That's what makes the first T great, is they can go out and play a sport. Well, you can do that with soccer. Everybody plays soccer now. I don't know the rules to the game, but I have a guy that I'm coaching who is was a professional, so he knows the rules. But anyways, what the point is like, I would do that because, see, to me, to change America, and I don't mean to change everything about it, I just mean to get it back to some moral foundation. We have to reach the kids.
Yeah.
We have to give them a reason why. A reason why they should want to live in our country, a reason why they should want to do better, be better, as you say in your podcast all the time, just to be a little bit better. It's the Kaizen way, the constant, never ending improvement, and teaching kids that. If I had been taught that when I was 6 or 7 years old, my life would be a lot different quicker.
Yeah.
It'd be a while to get those concepts. But if you take kids when they're pliable and you're able to pour that into them, man, they're champions at 18, 20 years old. They're not waiting to be champions at 40 like I was.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that longer running start, that longer runway provides benefits holistically. There's no doubt about that, Don. Thank you for that. As we wrap up, because this has been a tremendous dialogue, my friend. I mean, just to say the least. I've learned a lot. It looks like a lot of our folks that are watching are learning a lot and contributing and and supporting what's being said and can identify with it all around. What are just one or two best practices, Don, that have really worked for you? And you've talked about several different things here today. But what are just one or two things that have really worked for you that you think will work with someone else? If someone got done listening to this podcast, right? What's one or two things they can go do and incorporate into their life that will help them be a little better?
I think probably the top one is developing and overcoming empowering mindset and living by and that book that I recommended earlier, The Obstacles Away, is a great way to read what that looks like. But the mindset piece, look, attitude always determines altitude. You've heard that said.
Absolutely.
And it never changes. And the more you can sow that in experience and action, the more you reap it back to you. And so almost it's like empowering means own your stuff. Be responsible responsible for what you have. Work hard. Put the time in. Take massive action towards your goals. And when you have a bad day, just mark it up as a bad day. That, hey, you failed. Get up tomorrow with a good attitude and go after it again. Pivot and move forward. And that's probably the main one. And the second thing I would probably give would be start creating what I call, I don't like culture, it's too narrow, but ecosystems of success in your life. Ecosystems would be something like this. I journal every day, or I read stuff out of my journal, or if I'll write something down. And I believe in physically journaling your life, the bad, good, the ugly, all of it. And then going back and looking at it and seeing where you've grown from a year or two forward, right? And then so that's part of my ecosystem. The other part of my ecosystem is prayer for me, and it's having some spiritual time. It's being able to manage my physical health. I work out with a bunch of crazy CrossFitters, so I go work out with them every morning, and they try to kill me because I'm getting ready to turn 59 in November, so I'm a little bit older than they are. But anyways, I don't use it as an excuse. I go with a good attitude, right? That's number one.
Right. There you go.
Anyways, so that's part of my ecosystem. Is working out daily for me is part of that. Journaling daily, prayer, and having these 4 or 5 or 6 things, not making them rules, but having these things that build your life. And as you create an ecosystem around you, you'll find that it's easy to give it away to the people that you're impacting and empowering.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And it's such a tremendous way to wrap up, this podcast, Don, with that message of empowerment, of attitude, and creating personal ecosystems, and behaviors, right? That, lead not just so much to success, but, to living the lifestyle that you want to live, right? In the time that we're all given. And so, that's tremendous. And NYB community, I hope that, again, you take that with you and you can apply that when you get done listening to this. I always like to give you and make sure our guests give you something that you could take with you immediately. As soon as you cut this off and you go back to whatever you were doing, maybe you start doing something you weren't doing, or you stop doing something that maybe you shouldn't be doing, or maybe a combination of all those. And so Don W. Long is our guest today. Best-selling author, like I mentioned earlier, Amazon best-selling author. You can find both his books that we mentioned earlier on Amazon, as well as go to donwlong.com. donwlong.com is where you can go. But best-selling author, speaker, and peak performance consultant, Don W. Long.
Could I put one other thing in? If you give
to please.
Listening, I'll send you the link so you can put it in the notes. But Life Bites for Life, just like that.
Okay.
Lifebitesforlife.com.
Is that 4 spelled out, or the number 4?
No, it's spelled out. Life Bites for Life is spelled out. .com. If you're people listening will go, www. And I'll send the link so you can put it in the notes. But if they go there, they can. I've got 30-day. I did 5-minute talks on 30 days, kind of like the Book of Proverbs, on life, and then 5-minute segments. So it's 30 of them, and it's free. It's a free gift if you're listening.
Wow. Wow, that's incredible. And so you said Life Bites for Life,
just like that. Bites got an S, BITES, Life Bites for Life, and .com, and it should pop right up. And like I said, when we jump off this, I will email you the. There you go. He just put it up on the screen right there. That's it right there.
Yeah. So everybody that's watching here on YouTube, you can see that, and it'll be in the show notes, like Don mentioned. You'll be able to go. That's Life Bites for Life, just as it sounds. Lifebitesforlife.com.
There you go.
Don's got a free gift for you. Again, more great content, more things that you can add to your life. And you just can't get enough of that. You can't get enough good, positive word, particularly in today's time. NYB. I know there's so much going on. There's so much, there's so much news. There's so much, just different things. There's, oftentimes a lot of negativity and, a lot of debating and arguing and things like that take place. And it's good to get good, positive, food for thought, to feed your spirit and feed your mindset. So Don, thank you so much for that. Really appreciate that. And
a
yeah,
lot.
make sure people get to that. So I appreciate that. Listen, best wishes to you and your family as we go forward with this. I look forward to remaining in touch with you. And this has been tremendous for me, and I think for the entire community. So
Thank
thank you,
you.
Don. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, sounds good. Listen, Don, enjoy the rest of your day. Enjoy your weekend, and we'll talk soon, my friend. Okay.
All right. Sounds good. Good
All
talk.
right, sounds good. Thank you so much for Mr. Don W. Long joining us here on the Mind Your Business podcast. Um, so, listen, everyone, this has been tremendous to say the least when you talk about um, everything that Don mentioned, right? Everything that Don spoke about has been um, something that we should all take to heart, right? And so make sure that you do that. Make sure that at the end of the day, um, think about the things that Don mentioned and let's take those things to heart. Okay, MYB. Hope that you learned a little bit about sales. Hope you had a little laugh along the way because we want to make sure that we touch and help you edify your lifestyle. Listen, I'm going to get out of here. Have a tremendous rest of your day. And remember, there's three things that we all have in common. And that's we all want to be a little better for ourselves, a little better for our families, and a little better for our communities. Champ Ron, the Minding Your Business podcast.